My fellow citizens. My name is Virgil Wood, and I am affiliated with the Jubilee National Collaborative. Today, we are happy to have you hear from one of our collaborators, Dr. Ryan Hulbert, whose work is empowering people in communities. And he has a very exciting thing to share with you today. And after he does, he and I will discuss it a bit and let you know how this is available to you, to families, to groups, churches, schools, all of that, corporations immediately once you go on our website. But I'm so happy to present my dear friend, Ryan Hulbert, Dr. Ryan Hulbert. Ryan, share with our listeners, as you will, please, the great work that we've been privileged to do together.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Virgil. It's such a privilege to be part of this and to have your friendship in my life.
Thank you.
Because this initially, or as it originates, is around Mother's Day. And whether or not you see this around Mother's Day, and there's nothing more timely than honoring mothers in any time of the year, I wanted to start off a little bit with a little Mother's Day message. I will show you a picture of my mother and father during World War II before they were married. This is this happy couple as she was supporting him before he went off to be a submariner in the United States Navy in the Atlantic during the World War II. She was a collector of quotes and passed that on to me. And I'd like to read just a couple little quotes concerning mothers. God could not be everywhere, so he made mothers. It's an absolute human certainty that no one can know his own beauty or perceive his own worth until it has been reflected back to him in the mirror of another loving, caring human being. And finally, from Mother Teresa, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Well, my mother passed away now, but this has a tremendous influence in my life. And one of the things that I've written that reflects that, and I hope it's a generic thing for people in general, is a book I've written called Which Came First, the Soul or the Ego? It's naturally kind of a play on words of the old adage, which came first, the chicken or the egg? But in this case, there is an answer. Let me show you the inspiration of the cover of the book. This picture hung in a fellow counselor's office. Pat Carrick was her name. She had raised 7 children as the wife of a physician, and then in her 50s went back to college and obtained a master's degree. And this intriguing picture hung in her office where I worked as a psychologist. As you can see, hopefully it's a mother and a child with kind of a beam of light connecting them, symbolic in my mind of the mother transporting that loving image of the child to them, awakening their soul in terms of their own worth as a person. And so this little book called Which Came First, the Soul or the Ego, was produced recently after literally incubating for 20 years in my mind. I'll show you a couple of pictures of it. Using that chicken egg analogy, it describes the yolk as our souls, our unique potential as individuals, and the eggshell as our ego, excuse me, my taping this on my phone and I've got it taped to a box here. Hopefully will stay upright. Our ego is compared to the shell, and in this case, the egg shell, or as I try to put it in simple terms, our self-concept. Often our self-concept is different, well, almost always different from our set of potentials internally, and as I refer to it as the soul. So which came first, the soul or the ego? Obviously, the soul came first. In the development of an actual chicken egg, the yolk comes down through the fallopian tube of the mother chicken, and then almost like in a factory type of fashion, the other things are added, the white part, and then the eggshell is the last part of the little factory. It's necessary to protect as the internal chicken or the soul grows, but then gets to a point where it's no longer fits. There's more, and the eggshell breaks under natural development, and the true potentials start a whole new phase of development. Anyway, it's a short little book. I like to write short books that can easily be read in a short period of time and comprehensible. I need to work with my phone here. Tape this up a little bit better, I apologize. The book goes on to talk about how others help draw out our potentials. A father can draw out things unique that the mother cannot, and vice versa. Siblings help, coaches, mentors, teachers. All of us can recognize at least one person in our life who tapped into something that maybe we hadn't, or even our family hadn't discovered before. I've heard it said that for a child to develop properly, there has to be at least one person who has an irresistible love for that person, or can see that potential. I also include in the book 2 stories written by the daughter of Pat Carrick, and also was the painter of that intriguing cover picture. Lisa Carrick is her name. She wrote a story about her father called By Lantern Light. It was written as a college essay in a creative writing class. And By Lantern Light, the title comes from the fact that as a physician with many children, he often would come home after normal business hours, after working hard all day, and would take his children to a nearby park using a Coleman lantern to push them on the swing so that they would still have time even though it was after dark. She also wrote a companion article about her mother called The Silver Thread, describing the influence her mother had. The book also highlights something that Dr. Wood introduced me to, and that's the Enneagram. It's a marvelous tool. I, as a psychologist, have been trained in many different types of psychological and personal assessments and means of better understanding ourselves. I hadn't heard of the Enneagram before. We recommend that you consider taking this assessment at a site called Eclectic Enneagram. It's a free resource that helps you identify some of your unique spiritual gifts that make you a unique person in 9 different flavors of the spirit. I'm still very much a student of it, but it also helps you to find out areas of vulnerability, which often interestingly enough, are an exaggeration of your strength. Sometimes we overdo our strengths in an attempt to perhaps impress others, and that can become a detriment to our humble fulfilling of our unique missions as individuals. The book has some other features to it, including reflections on my work as a person helping people with addictions. I'll attempt to show you a picture that's kind of a symbolic representation of the same concept of the soul being internal. This one doesn't look too much like an egg, but it shows our soul as in the middle, and then our mind, our body, and then the outer shell. Book goes on to show different examples of how sometimes we overemphasize our mind in protecting our ego, and that actually hardens the shell, thickens the shell, and prevents our growth from inside. Sometimes we overemphasize the body to the neglect of the ability for the soul to progress. All of those are further harmed by use of substances, which often can be an attempt to fulfill a natural desire that all of us have to feel high. But there are natural highs and unnatural highs. And people ask me, what do I view as the main difference between those? And I let them know that anything that brings a feeling of peace and natural high that enhances relationships, that is a good natural high. Unnatural highs bring a temporary sense of euphoria or relief from pressure, but carried out and extended always lead to a harming of relationships, a decreasing of the social network until isolation and the substance or the behavior become a person's only companion. So I want to let you know that this book is available in both English and Spanish. And also I've made an online course that is available. These things will be available through a new resource, a website called the Beloved Community Institute.org. This will be a marvelous resource from various and many contributors, all helping to contribute to healing the soul of America, following Dr. Wood's leadership. And I'd also like to let you know on that website, belovedcommunityinstitute.org, is a feature which allows you to become a beloved community neighbor. This is something that Dr. Wood and I and others have sought to develop to allow people to have a feel of being part of this movement, first in the nation and then in the world. You go to belovedcommunityinstitute.org and you'll see a picture of a stool that looks kind of like this, that shows the individual, the family, the community raised up, body, mind, spirit, and founded on a beloved economy is the symbolism. Some of the words on the page include that all may be one. Think globally, act locally. By going to that picture of the stool underneath it, and also at the beginning of the website, you'll see something like log in, invite to log in, something like that. you click on that or by the stool, and you're invited to take a pledge. This is all at no cost and all in both English and Spanish. Once you enter your name, zip code, and email, you are able to download a beautiful certificate. This is Dr. Wood's, a copy of his certificate, where you are a beloved community neighbor, and you become pinned to a picture of the United States according to your zip code. We've prepared the feature to also allow for international beloved community neighbors. That certificate looks a little bit different. It has not a USA beloved community neighbor, but worldwide neighbor. So I wanted to share with you first a little bit about the soul and the ego. I have a deep belief in the innermost strength of every person. Every person is of infinite worth and deserves to have the opportunity to fulfill their personal mission. Many of the things that we're attempting to do in the Jubilee National Collaborative and associated partners is to help every child be able to be allowed to have that kind of environment that would maximize their growth, strengthen their family, their parents, strengthen their communities to allow for maximum growth physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, and economically. So I think that's the main things I wanted to share. I'm happy to answer any questions or further. Oh, I forgot to mention, once you get your personal certificate as a beloved community neighbor, you're also able to download 2 books for free in either English or Spanish that I have written and that are endorsed by Dr. Wood. One of them is a fun little book, as I mentioned, English and Spanish, called Driver's Ed for the Brain, Finding Greater Peace and Joy. The other one is a Christian-oriented book called The Sun is Always Shining, Renewing Your Heart and Mind Through the Light of Christ. Here's both the English and the Spanish version. And you can see that we're excited to equip people with these resources and hope that anything that I've said might be of help to you, and I'll respond to any questions that Dr. Wood might have.
Thank you, Ryan. I want to have you share something else, but before you do, I want to share this with our audience. If you go to my book called In Love We Still Trust, Lessons We Learned from Martin Luther King, Jr. and Sr. In that book, on chapter 4 is called Education Reform, First Things First. I want to suggest that among our collaborators, there are about 24 actually. One half of them are focused on the Jubilee Man, what we call the Jubilee Man, raising the Jubilee boy. And that's where our brothers from fraternities, churches, sororities, civic service groups, all of them, corporations, and all of them will have an assignment where they are mentoring boys. And on the other side, the other collaborators are women, the Jubilee woman raising the Jubilee girl. And that is where our sororities, all women's groups of all types, all races, everything, will be working with their faith institution, their schools, and other groups to do what we call Jubilee motherhood, of Jubilee mothers raising girls, so that we are strengthening the bond towards and growing our family. So you're talking about ultimately, you're talking about Jubilee familyhood, and you're talking about Jubilee neighborhoods. And those things come together. Here in Texas, we are somewhat advanced in direction around that chapter 4. We're calling it the Greater Houston Transformation Zone. You perhaps are familiar with the great work that Dr. Guthrie is doing in Harlem. It's called the Harlem Children's Zone. They drew a circle around a certain geography in Harlem, and they made a covenant. All of the different groups, parents, police, professors, pupils, even the pimps, made a covenant that whatever it takes to help every child succeed, we're committed to that fully, and we hold each other accountable for it, and we enter into a covenant. And we hold 4 assemblies a year. Every 5th Sunday weekend in the year is assembly weekend. And those are convened by the shepherd's table. The shepherd's table is the religious leaders, rabbis, ministers, imams, and anything else, anybody else who's a spiritual leader, who come together not to talk about our faith at all, but to talk about what in our society that's broke that we got to make sure we fix together. And if we have to consult our faith resource, then we go back to our silo, our particular silo, and discuss it, and come back to the table with the essence of what you bring from your faith. But it's not a creed, it's a deed. You go back and consult your creed and see what is the deed that comes out of that. And you come back with that insight on the deed. And when all that comes together, all animosity among and between faith groups is all gone. We are now beyond any kind of dispute. And we know that when we announce the big project, which is Global Jubilee Love Project, global, from wherever you are to the ends of the earth. The presentation you just heard, my friend, Dr. Hulbert share, you'll be able to go to our library on the website and hear that ahead of time and be prepared for a discussion when you come on, whether you come on a Thursday night, a Saturday noon, or a Sunday evening. There will be those opportunities. We're asking families to decide which of those times every week they as a family will be together. We'd like the families to share a family meal before you come on. And at that table, we're calling that the kitchen table summit. The kitchen table summit. After the shooting in Colorado in '91, our president at the time said that what we needed was a summit on families, and my team said, no, we don't need a White House summit. We've had summits in the White House. What we need is a kitchen table summit in every house. Every family holds its own summit every week. And the purpose of that is to sit down as a family and enjoy a meal. You should set aside at least 3 hours for what I'm saying right now, for the kitchen table summit. That can be Thursday evening, that can be Saturday noon or Sunday evening, or any other time that's more convenient for your family. But those are the times that you'll be able to join with a global community in discussion and raising your own questions. And we're not there to get information. You would go to our library and hear a lecture, a conversation, a fireside chat, such as you've just heard from Dr. Ryan, so that you'll come to our meetings on Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday, prepared to raise questions as to how you can engage what it is you as a family want to move towards next. At that table, every week, the family can start by celebrating with whomever around the table has had something really extraordinarily good to happen to them this week. We're going to call that the goody good. The goody good that's happened to somebody around this table. Everybody talks about their goody good. And then at the end, the family decides whose goody good they're celebrating this week. The next thing happens is everybody can talk about something that challenges them. It may be that a young person is up against a decision. They don't know what to do with it. And if they make the wrong choice, they may have put their lives in jeopardy for the next 10 years, a mistake. I've seen cases where a young sister has gotten pregnant and the family dynamics do not allow her to come to the family and say, I want you all to know that I'm up against something. And Mother, you and I'll talk more about it, but I just want the family to know that you will be helping me to get through this. And she then says to Mother, Mother, I've gone beyond our family code and covenant. I'm pregnant, Mother. I don't know what to do. Now that's not something that a child should have to go to anybody else except her own mother. And the mother must be ready to help that child. Let that not be a hindrance to that child's moving forward. That's in the family setting. Those are the kinds of nuances, and I would like to simply call them our joy in being a family. So many families have no joy in being together. That's why so many folks don't even want to go home. They want to stay away from home as long as they can and only go home when they have to get a little sleep and then leave. That's not a healthy way to live as a family. So this movement is concerned about helping families to find joy in each other's presence. And at least once a week, you will celebrate. That's what the Hebrew Bible talks about Sabbath. Our Jewish friends call Shabbat. The family ought to keep the Shabbat. Jubilee is a jubilee. A Sabbath is a baby jubilee. A jubilee is a 50 years of having every week celebrated Sabbath. And when you do that, your family will be so strong together that nothing can break your family. And you can celebrate your family. I know when I talk about my family, my beloved wife of 70 years, and my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, I just rejoice. And when I'm rejoicing, somebody thinks I'm bragging. I'm not bragging. I'm giving thanks. Bragging is when you focus on yourself. But giving thanks is when you're giving thanks to the one who made all of you. And y'all know that as a family. And this work of Dr. Hulbert is going to be a real resource for you. Dr. Hulbert and I will be on to answer your questions on Thursday evening, May the 20th. And as many of you will know, that's what's called, that's the day, 3 days before Pentecost. That's the beginning of the Pentecost weekend. Pentecost is Sunday, May 23rd. So starting Thursday night, May 20, when Dr. Hulbert and I will be available to share with you, and we're encouraging you to go and listen to some of these tapes ahead of time, and you can go on our website and get further information on how to prepare. But those sessions will be designed to help you figure out, how do I do this? And you'll be better prepared to do that when you've listened to these instructions. We call Thursday night information night. Saturday noon, we're calling that family reunion with Rosa Parks. The people who guided Mary, Thursday night is really named for the man who shaped Martin Luther King. Dr. Benjamin Mays was president of Morehouse College. Every Thursday night is Thursday night with Benjamin Mays. That's academic night. That's learning night. Saturday is family day, high noon. That's when we're celebrating ourselves as a family. That's Rosa Parks gathering, Saturday noon. And Sunday, Vesper time at sunset time, Vesper time, that's inspiration with Martin Luther King. You will hear some of the finest speakers and some of the finest wisdom setters all over America. And there'll be all colors you'll hear, but you'll also, this is out of the experience of the Black church. The Black church and the white church are not the same church, but they can come together because we don't have the same experiences. The slave owners church and the slaves church are totally different. But the place we can come together is what we call the Deep Woods Open Air Cathedral. And these are being built all over America. In Blacksburg, the university has probably a 10-acre, we'll call it oak tree orchard, an orchard of oak trees, some of them 200,000 years old. And these trees are named for certain virtues. And they will represent a memorial place where families can celebrate with their dead some of the rituals that have been created out of this movement. There's one here in Galveston, Texas, that probably will be announced on June 19th, which is Juneteenth. And that is the day in 1965 when the slaves in Texas got the word that they'd been set free. Make no mistake about it, this thing is being convened by the Black church and Black community, but it's a Jubilee thing. And the Jubilee is Black first, but not Black only. All groups got to have their own Jubilee first. And Afro-Christendom first is Jubilee. And when we all are together around Jubilee, there shall be no boundaries or fences between any of us, because we will then know they are one family. And that's that scripture that Christians will know, John 17:21, that all may be one, that all may be one. All of us can subscribe to that. That all may be one. Tambo is that all may be one. And there's another one that our colleague, who's he and Dr. Ryan are working closely together, Dr. Owen Cardwell. We've been associated in this work since he was 14 and I was 31. When I led Martin Luther King's movement in his city, Lynchburg, and brought Martin Luther King there, he was 14, went to jail with Martin Luther King as well as myself at Danville, Virginia. Now he is the pastor of the church I pastored in those days. He is a pastor and a distinguished professor at the University of Lynchburg. And you'll be able to hear him and Dr. Ryan, his work, we call it Hada. He'll tell you more about that when you hear him. You'll go to our library and listen to those lectures by Dr. Cardwell. And you will also hear from Dr. Ralph Hall, economist at Virginia Tech, my very dear friend, who is responsible for this work being where it now is. We now know that beloved community and beloved economy must go together. Martin never said beloved community, beloved economy, because we hadn't understood that when he left us. But we understand it now, and we know that that's going to be the secret to healing the brokenhearted soul of America. And our president wants to do that, and I applaud him. And I tell you this, every POTUS who's still alive will have a role to play in this. Yes, even Donald Trump, a role to play in what we're talking about. And I know why I can say that. The day he appeared in the front of that church in Washington holding up a Bible, many people thought that was cynical. That was not cynical at all. I read it and I felt it. I heard him asking his clergy people to help him make sense of what he was going through. I'm talking about POTUS that's living, Jimmy Carter, so much an exemplary former president. But when he was running for president, he was made a stumble. He made a comment kind of making people think maybe racism was just what they call ethnic cleansing. And when he said that, he lost Black folks. Martin Luther King daddy went to Jimmy Carter and put his arms around him and said to the Black church leadership, Jimmy, good old boy, we're going to help him to get this straight. Jimmy Carter. It doesn't matter who is a racist. It doesn't matter who is what. Even Ronald Reagan, whatever he was, signed the edict that our support for the Martin Luther King national holiday. Ronald Reagan signed that. It doesn't matter what people think. It matters what they do. And you can think anything you want to think, but if you do the right thing, you got a role in history that will honor you forever.